that case, it's
there
progress.
you go.
Yeah,
it's recording in progress.
It's in progress, Mr. Rinaldi. So let's get cracking, shall we? Well, listen, thank you very much, Steve, for being part of this Reach Road alumni interview. The focus of this is to encourage young people, as you know, that are living in this area to have broader and wider dreams and to assume, rather than assume not, that in fact what they can do is anything they dream of. So you're a legend for that. In fact, Steve, you're the only person that I know anyway, he's got his own Wikipedia page. So however you've got there, I don't know. I think Chris might have something to do with it. But
yeah, interestingly enough, I think if you Wikipedia Haverhill, there's only two people that come up, two names that come up connected with Haverhill. There's me and the bloke that wrote the American Constitution. So that's really quite a
it's really quite good company that you're keeping, isn't it? It's good company that you're keeping. And,
but the thing is with that, it's like you know, talking about aspiration, it's just it's not that I'm you know, any particularly special, and there's a lot more successful people that come out of Haverhill than me. It's just that you know, I've got in order to get a page on Wikipedia, there's just certain steps you have to go through. So you have to become accepted as an author on Wikipedia, and then you you know, and then become established and make sure what you write on there is factually accurate, because people will challenge you on them. So yeah, so it's I think a lot about aspiration is actually just breaking it down into small chunks, which maybe we can get onto.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, I hope so. So just for those people that in the world who for whatever reason had their heads in buckets and don't know who Steve Rinaldi is, listen, because this guy really is the bee's knees. So this is going to be hopefully a great interview for you to listen to. So let's just give you your intro, Steve, if I may. So obviously you're an alumni. You used to go to Samuel Ward in the distant past. You're a composer, you're a singer, you're a teacher, you're a big band member, you're in Secret Affair. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
It is a fantastic. You were an orchestra member. You were a group player in the fantastic mod band, The Moment. You're to this day a solo artist who's done some fantastic videos, including sneaking into a certain aeroplane park to make one, if I remember rightly. And
yes,
and you're far more than that. You're a good friend to many people of the town, and an icon to the people of the town. So, but of course, at one stage, Steve Rinaldi, you were a little boy coming into an upper school, Samuel Ward, and at that point, I don't know, what did you think you were going to be when you left? Did you have any careers in mind? Were you going to be a spokesman or?
I had, like so many 13-year-olds, literally no idea what I wanted to do. I had at that point I had two great passions in life, and that's all. The only thing I ever did as a 13-year-old was either play music or play cricket. That was my two things, and I was obviously aware that there were people in the world who made their living playing cricket and making music, but I didn't think that avenue. It wasn't that I thought, oh, that avenue is not open to me. It just never, ever occurred to me that it would be possible for me to become either of those things professionally. And actually, I ended up going down, a couple of other routes first before eventually finding my way into the music profession. And I think that's important as well. Is to kind of like to find to try lots of different things, and I think if you just work hard enough at things, you end up finding the route that's right for you.
Okay. One of the questions I've been talking over with other people is the good and bad aspects of school in terms of peers, close friends, teachers. Now, most people say that there are some teachers that stand out, that may have been an influence on guiding you in some way to do it. If that's the case, who were they? Or if it wasn't teachers, was it people outside of school, people in local bands or family? And the other question on the end of that is, I'm very conscious that I have a lot of conversations with students about them choosing subjects and saying, well, I'm going to choose subjects that my friends are taking, even if I don't like it. And your thoughts on, independence and how to actually say to people if you do, no, I've got my direction. I'm taking this route. You're going to have to respect that.
Sorry, I just your video, your audio just dropped out towards the end of that question. Sorry, what was the end of that question?
Oh, so the second part of the question was about being influenced by friends in terms of choices that you make, both academically and possibly leaving school. Both of us know a lot of people that went on to work in the same field because they were friends, and then doing the same job and are still doing the same job because they had that allegiance for friendship. And your thoughts on that?
Well, that can obviously be good or it can be bad. I mean, for me, it certainly was two things: teachers and friends were fundamental to my choice in the end, and actually to opening up the possibilities for me. So if you think about teachers, first of all, I didn't actually do GCSE music, well, O-level music as it was then.
Yeah.
He became a really good mate later on, but my music teacher actually, I didn't actually get on with my music teacher at school. And as I say, when I left school, he actually joined my dad's band, and we became really, really good mates. But there was just something we just kind of rubbed up against each other in the wrong way, and I didn't take O-level music. I did drama instead, which then actually kind of had a bit of a knock-on effect for me for a few years, because not having done GCSE music or O-level music, I then didn't immediately go on and do A-level music, which was obviously a prerequisite to getting into music college. Right. So I left Samuel Ward in 1985 with a very small clutch of O-levels. I think I did 5. I got just about scraped my 5th. In fact, I stayed on an additional year in the sixth form just to get my 5 O-levels in order to give me some choices for the next stage. And I didn't actually know at all what I wanted to do, even towards, I think it was the last week of the summer holidays, when I had nothing lined up for the next year, what I was going to do, either a job or a course or whatever. And it was actually my mum who came and dragged me out of my mate's back garden where I was sunbathing and took me to listening to the Temptations. It was and she dragged me to what was West Suffolk College. It's now Suffolk. It's now the University of Suffolk, I think, isn't it? Suffolk Uni. And the one thing I did kind of enjoy at school, in terms of lessons and in terms of teachers, was actually my graphic design. Because I kind of enjoyed that and I did quite well in my O-level, my mum thought, well, graphic design, drawing, it's kind of structural drawing, that's connected with building. So I found myself sitting in an interview being asked, why do you want to do a BTEC in building and construction? Without a suitable answer. But I'm obviously managed. Yeah, that's right. So I managed to bluff my way. So I did that, and I actually really thoroughly enjoyed the course. And then, because of coming to the second part of your question about friends, I joined a band called a Haverhill band called The Moment, which were actually at that point were, had a little bit of success, and there's a story there as well about aspiration. If you want it, it might be able to connect it to another question later on. Because I became firm friends with the lead singer, Adrian Holder, and he was going down to London to study psychology, I think he studied, and he basically needed a flatmate. And so I thought, oh, well, I'll go to London and study. Well, what can I study? Oh, I've just done a building and construction BTEC, so I'll do a degree in building and construction. So I actually went down to London and did a term of it. And it was actually quite a difficult course to get onto, I understand, because at the start they said, look, this course is massively oversubscribed. If you're not really serious about it, please don't accept your place, because once you've taken it up, that's a place that somebody else really would want. So by Christmas, they took us on a site visit to Trafalgar Square to look at they were rebuilding, you know, a corner of Trafalgar Square, and we were taken on a site visit. And I remember it as clear as day. We were talking with the manager, the building manager of the site, and he did the question, you know, so where do you see yourself in 5 years' time, to all of us. And one of the guys on the course said, "Oh, I want your job," right? And he said, and quite right so. He said, "Well, if you work really, really hard for 5 years, you may get a job as a foreman, and then if you work for another 5 years, you get a management position. And if you work really, really hard and you're really fortunate, in 20 years you might be where I am," right? And I stood there, and I remember thinking, I actually don't want to be where you are. No. I thought, I'm in the wrong place. Yeah. And it was like a lightning bolt. It was like, I'm completely in the wrong place for what I want to be doing. And then of course I had the difficult choice of actually going and seeing my course director and saying, "I'm sorry, mate, I'm not in the right place." The course was in Westminster University, which is directly opposite the planetarium on Marlborough, on Marylebone High Road, and just about 3 or 4 doors down from there is the Royal Academy of Music. And I thought, "Oh, what am I going to say?" So anyway, I sat down, and he said, "Yeah, how can I help?" I said, "Sorry, I don't want to be here." And I stood up and pointed to the Royal Academy of Music and said, "I want to be there." And he stood up, and he had this thing which looked like a big table with a cloth on it at the back of his room. And he pulled this cloth off, and it was a marimba, you know, like a big glockenspiel. Yeah. And he said, "I always wanted to be a musician." And he started playing this marimba for me. And he said, "Good luck, all the best." So then I was stuck. Thought, well, actually, how on earth do I actually get across there? I know it's only 50 yards across the road, but how do I actually get in? And the first thing was then having to go and do an A-level. So I hadn't done, obviously, music O-level. So I contacted Jane Wright at Samuel Ward and said, "Look, this is the situation, and I want to go to music college. Obviously, I need a music A-level. What can I do?" And she was great. She said, "Well, come and do it here." So I was 20. Yeah. And I came back to Samuel Ward. I think this is when we first met, actually. Yeah, I think you were there. And I came back and did my A-level in a year, and then got a place at music college and went off. So in terms of teachers and friends having an impact, and obviously that can be a negative one, but actually in my case it was, I think it was quite a positive one, because although it took me a few years, I got where I wanted to be. Yeah. Even though it was a bit circuitous.
So I mean, when I moved to Haverhill, there was a huge mod movement. I was amazed coming from Bristol, where I was at uni, and going down to the car park where the co-op used to be, and it was absolutely full from one end to the other of Vespers and mods. And they would, I mean, it was like this is some massive event, and it was a normal evening for Haverhill. Huge influence. Yeah. And obviously you were a main influence on that movement, and being in a band that, if you said the Moment in Haverhill or anywhere, in fact in Suffolk, the Moment, and yes, Steve Rinaldi. Oh, you know Steve Rinaldi, and it was quite a major thing to say that you're part of. But that must have been a huge influence when you wanted to.
Well, it really was, and in fact, another point in. Because, you know, as I say, I did 2 things. I made music and I played cricket. That was it. Yeah. But Haverhill I do talk to some people who kind of have a slightly negative view about Haverhill. Historically, it's you know, it's had, I don't know, I think a reputation it's never deserved in some areas, because the arts in Haverhill is so much more. There's so much more available to do in terms of arts in Haverhill than certainly even in Bury St Edmunds, or which is where I live now. There's so much more available to young people in terms of getting involved in arts in Haverhill. And I joined the Haverhill Silver Band. That's where I kind of started with my music. And another really influential person was Richard Pannell, who was my my brass teacher at school.
Tim's
And
father.
that's right. And Tim, who I think works at Samuel, what does he teach? He certainly used to. I don't know whether he still does. Teaches brass and guitar. Yeah, and obviously he plays in Secret Affair with me now. So I work with his son in Secret Affair. But I played the euphonium, which was a lovely instrument, but very, very brass band specific. Another connected with the mod movement, because this was in the sort of the mid to late 80s, and mod, although really still there was lots and lots and lots of mods in Haverhill, its heyday was quite like 79 and 80. So another kind of really important decision that I made was I went to see Paul Weller play at Wembley Arena when he had his band called the Style Council, and I went to see them in 1985. And at this point, I played euphonium, and I went along with my sister, and I remember sitting in the audience, it was a really great gig, and looking at the brass section and thinking, I really, really want to be in a brass section. But obviously the euphonium wasn't an instrument that that's going to be, that's adaptable in that way. And bizarrely enough, about 2 months later, Alan Groom was my brother-in-law. The moment came down. They were recording an album and some singles, and they wanted some brass on it. So they came down to the brass band and said, we need some brass players. But of course, they wanted a trumpet player and a trombone player. They didn't want a euphonium player. So Alan and the trombone player from the band went and did the recording. And then after that, because they then started started selling quite a few records and becoming really quite popular. They wanted to take the brass with them on the road doing gigs, but the trombone player didn't want to do it. So Alan was telling me about it, saying, I don't know what we're going to do. I'm going to do the gig, but we've not got any trombone players. And I said, I'll do it. And at this point, I'd never played a trombone before in my life. But I think there are moments in your life where an opportunity presents itself, and you just have to grab it. There's a great quote by a guy called Joe DeCessa, who's an American author, and he said there are some points in your life where you need to bite off more than you can chew, and then keep chewing. Oh, wow. And that certainly was a point when I did that, because I was like, I'll do it, and I just grabbed a trombone from the band room, and Alan was like, well, we've got a rehearsal. I think I had like a week, and I thought, right, well, I'm not going to be able to play the trombone properly, but what is it I actually need to do to get through that first rehearsal? So I got the music, I got the recordings off of Alan, and I just kind of worked out the brass parts, and I just had to learn just the notes for that rehearsal, which I did, and I kind of managed to bluff my way through it, and I was in, and that was it. Then I had a trombone, and I kind of learned the trombone, and all of a sudden, from it just being, I'd really like to be in that brass section. All of a sudden, an opportunity like that presented itself, and then I was a trombone player, and then I was able to then study trombone at college. But the really kind of fortunate thing, I say fortunate, yes, it was fortunate, but I had to grab it again. There's another opportunity I had to grab with both hands, because I played euphonium. When I went to music college, I had a trombone teacher, but you also study a second study. Right. My second study was euphonium. And my euphonium teacher was a guy called Andy Forbert, who was a bass trombone player, but also a euphonium player. And in my first term at college, he had a show in the West End. He was playing in a show called in Carmen Jones at the Old Vic. They don't obviously do every single show because it runs for quite a long time, and they have other work that they want to keep going, so they get depths in. And because I played euphonium, it was a trombone and euphonium double on the show, so you had to be able to play both, which is a little bit unusual. And so there's not that many other people that can do it. And because I then got on really well with him personally. This was in my first term. He then said, come and have a look at the pad, come and have a look at the show and see if you think you can do it. And I went along and saw it and I thought, oh, there's no way I can do this. But again, something inside me said, bite off more than you can chew, mate, and just keep chewing. And I said, yeah, all right, I can do it. And fortunately, if I say fortunately, I then just worked and worked and worked and worked. I got the pad. I said, look, if I can have a couple of weeks, and he lent me the music. There was a spare set of music, and I just worked 6 hours a day for about 2 or 3 weeks just to be able to do that. And I went and did it, and they were happy with me. And then that paid my way through college, because then once I was in with, you know, with West End trombone players, because the other players in the section also had went and depped on other shows, and they had deps come in who were playing on other shows as well. I then started getting, you know, deps on all sorts of things. So going through college, I worked on Sunset Boulevard and Oliver at the Palladium and all of that, just because I happened to be able to play the euphonium as well as the trombone, and then that was it. And then I spent the next 10 years as a freelance professional trombone player, working lots in the West End, but doing all sorts of amazing things. You know, 6-week tours of Japan with the Glenn Miller Band, and tours around Europe with Bert Kaempfer Orchestra, and it just snowballed from that one opportunity. And if I'd have turned around to Andy Forbes and said, you know, no, I don't think I can. I don't know if I'd have got another opportunity.
Well, I think that the message you're putting across to our students is you've got to really cup it in. You've got to really seize the day and believe in yourself and go for it, because you've got nothing to lose, have you? And
that's right. That's it. What's the worst? That's right. The worst that could have happened, either at that rehearsal with the Moment or on that first show on Carmen Jones, is they say thanks very much, but you know, but no thanks. Okay, that's kind of that's a little bit of a bit confidence crushing, but that's all it is. You know, you just get up and try again, don't you?
Yeah, and sometimes that confidence crushing can make you more belligerent and determined to go back and, you know, think to yourself, what did they miss, or what didn't I quite do, and I'm going to get it right the next time. But being positive.
The thing was, I wasn't even the best trombone player at my college at that point. I wasn't. There was a guy there who, I'm not going to say his name, but he was much better than me. He could do all sorts of things on the trombone. I couldn't play anywhere near as well as him.
Yeah.
But he thought the world owed him a living. He thought that the London Symphony Orchestra were going to come and knock on his front door and say, "We'd like you to be principal trombone, please," because he just never put himself out to do anything, you know, unless it was going to be earning him a significant amount of money, or somebody came and asked him to do it. He just wouldn't. He just wouldn't put himself out there. There's another. I think it was a Woody Allen quote, isn't it? It was saying 80% of success is turning up. You know, which is right. You got to put yourself in the position. Okay, I was fortunate to be asked to do those things, but I fought like mad to get myself in a position where that could be possible. I mean, as I say, I wasn't the best trombone player at college at that point, but I did get really good at the end, because I just worked really hard.
Yeah,
I worked really hard, and in fact, I would. It was a bit of a point of honor with me that I would work harder than anybody else. So when at music college, we only had a limited number of practice rooms at college, and so to get a practice room, you know, if you turned up at 11 o'clock in the morning, you wouldn't get a practice room. So I got there at 7. The reason I got there at 7 is because and as a trumpet player mate of mine who was also like me, was just a really hard worker, he got there at 8, and I thought, well, if he's getting there at 8, I'm going to get there at 7. You know? and I just used to practice 6 hours a day, every day. Yeah, just non-stop, and just working. There's a when you see people on like the X Factor or whatever, you know, saying, oh, this is this is my dream. You know, I do wonder sometimes whether they mean their dream is just not to work. Because you know, you just got to. I think you just got. You've got to. It's not necessarily that you can be anything you want to be in the whole world. Because if that were true, I'd be a racing driver, I think. But I think the thing is, you find something you are good at, something you are talented at, something which you have an interest in. And as I say, you don't have to be, certainly when you're at school, you don't have to be the best at that thing. And then you just work like mad at it, and you listen carefully to what people are telling you. You kind of go out there and find you find as much out about what that thing is as you can. You try and you fail, and then you get up and you try again, and you fail and you try and you fail, and eventually, by that process of just keeping going, you will have a moment where there's an opportunity, and as I say, just grab it with both hands.
Oh, that is absolutely brilliant, and a wonderful interview, and an insight into how you've made it to where you've made it to. There's a common thread actually between all the interviews that I've been doing, where the points that you've been making have been sort of mirrored by other people. They've all been saying that same thing: hard work, taking chances, and believing in yourself are the most important things. And it is difficult to believe in yourself, isn't it? But doing that ultimately could, pay providence for you. Listen, thank you very much for doing this interview. We've had a few technical problems over the 4 days.
It's been nice seeing you again, because it's been a few years. So
it's been a few years, hasn't it? But hopefully that will be remedied very shortly. Just finally, can you please take this opportunity? I've been playing shamelessly your new album to my tutor group every morning, and I've been playing it during the lessons. Would you like to give a shout out to your new album and a promo?
Well, funnily enough, look what arrived in the post yesterday. I know. There's a big on my drive. There was just there's literally a pallet of these dropped on my thing. So yeah, very, very pleased with this. Well, here I'll tell you what. Here is a lesson in perseverance. I started recording the drums and bass for this album in 2010. I went in and recorded the drums for this. Yeah. And then I've spent the last 11 years working on it. Wow. And I'm just thrilled with it, I have to say. Because this is my third solo studio album. And it's called The Party's Over. And it's on Spotify, but there is a link on my Facebook page to be able to buy a CD. So yeah, so I was just listening to it yesterday, and I'm just absolutely chuffed with it. So.
Yeah, I am too. It's very proud for me to be ready to do it. Mr. Williams is another one of his friends is going to be playing the music, but it's very well liked, and I totally agree. Everybody go out and buy this wonderful album. Steve, it's been brilliant talking to you, and I look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Thanks, Neil. Take care. Great to see
you. Have a good day today.
All the best.
Bye-bye. See ya.
See you, mate. Thanks a lot. See you soon.
Bye.
I'll be in touch. We'll go for a drink.